moving to a new topic in this annual philosophical cycle. We'll spend 40 days on the Four Cardinals. And the Four Cardinals are, their names are ascesis, catharsis, fervor, and majesty. And it's really difficult to say exactly like what this topic is, because it's kind of a transcendental psychology, but it's also an epistemology. So I guess what I mean by that is like I use these four cardinals. They're sort of four horizons, four ways of four kind of like narratives, I guess, for the world. And all four of these views need to be employed in the continued process of unfolding the rest of the system. But the difficult thing in transcendental philosophy is that it, because there's this kind of principle of immanence, of kind of making sense of everything, if you just have a method, you're sort of left with a question, well, why this method? Like, what are these things? And so there's really a number of ways to arrive at what this is in terms of comparing it to like other projects, but I think the clearest one is Kant. So as I say a lot, and as you may be likely to know, Kant had a project of transcendental psychology where he outlined a cluster of faculties that are sort of this lens through which like we, whoever we is, see the world. Intuition of space of time, sensation, imagination, sort of experiencing a spatiotemporal matrix with objects in it, intellect, the ability to sort of analyze that, both to kind of like structure its direct experience, and also then to sort of comment on it and judge whether it's true or real or not. And then reason, which is this kind of unifying principle, this kind of desire to make sense of things, a desire for the world to be a better place, for good feelings, for good conduct. That kind of reason kind of pivots from pure reason to practical reason. So Kant is incredibly influential philosopher, and so there's all these different philosophers who take up Kant's project, and they too want to outline what the transcendental subject is, and then they choose other things. It's like on board with the project, but like Kant got X, Y, and Z wrong. And so among those is, we'll say, Delos. People don't really notice this, but so Deleuze's metaphysics involves assemblages of multiplicities. And essentially what he proposes is that this cluster of faculties is an assemblage. And what that means is that these like abilities to sort of sense, think, etc., are like they're an evolving ecosystem. They're not ideal, and they're not eternal. Each of them is in this kind of metaphysical plane a kind of organism, and they work together and sort of interlock, and they all evolve, and new ones could evolve, and that brings us into kind of Nietzschean territory, or just some kind of singular point could be crossed and one could turn into something else. It could evolve, like from a hand, from a paw to a hand, this kind of thing. So, so for Deleuze, like the fact, like something like various institutions in society or various ideas in society that people take for granted, ideals, are also faculties. So he has a more open list of these faculties. And my view here is basically that in the correct transcendental psychology, it involves 4 faculties. One of them is called catharsis, and this one is essentially has to do with intellect, with abstraction, the concept, and catharsis has a history. It's been a force in world history that has kind of blossomed and manifested, and it has a sort of an end goal, and it kind of has a method. So when I talk specifically about catharsis, intellect, reason, enlightenment, rationalism, there's a whole sort of religion around it, and a method for employing it. That's catharsis. Fervor, you can identify with sensation, including both like pure feeling that just like say feels good or feels bad, or feels stimulating, and also hearing sounds, seeing, sensation manifolds. As soon as you're seeing or hearing, you're involved with concepts to a degree, structuring that. So it can't be isolated entirely, but and sensation, fervor, also has its own history, its own logic, its own technique, and its own horizon of ultimate fulfillment. And it's more associated with the work of art. And there is a form of genius particular to fervor that is different from the form of genius particular to catharsis. Then there's majesty, and majesty is neither intellect nor art. You could identify it with will, basically. And this is kind of the logic of like sheer power. So, and again, it has a history, it has a technique, it has a history, it has an end goal. And this, you can think of it in terms of institutional power, political power, this kind of thing. But and it can also go into a post-human direction, sort of power, the power that comes from wielding equations, harnessing energy of the universe, harnessing biological energy. It's a very dangerous, scary one, potentially, but really possibly really great one. Like maybe Pluto in astrology would kind of maybe be the power one. So that's catharsis, fervor, majesty. And then there is ascesis, which I actually think of as the first one. And this is a bit different from the other 3 because this is the purely religious faculty, the purely religious cardinal, where it's populated by religious wisdom, and there is a logic of sort of self-realization in this, which in the Western tradition it involves faith and sort of liturgies of certain kinds and confession, prayer, meditation. In Eastern traditions, it involves chakras, and uh, like the important thing with this thesis is to sort of accept and understand that like this realm cannot be reduced to sensation or to intellect or to will. Uh, those are all kind of abstractions, and this one is a totality. So it just, it has beings and abilities in it, and this one is it's the most important one. It's the highest one. It's the most profound, and it's always sort of in danger of being sidelined in modernity. Um, or like explained away. So yeah, so these are the four main cardinals, or they are the four cardinals, the four faculties, um, and what is kind of like maybe nuanced about this, or like uh, important to keep in mind, is that they form an assemblage, but it's a little bit different from Kant's faculties, in part because the assemblage is not so harmonious. It's actually discordant. So each of these, as a horizon, tends to exclude and undermine and go against the other three, or at least some of the other three. You can't like coherently hold all of these views at once. For example, like think of the way that like a religious life kind of involves renouncing power or something like that, or full manifestation as an artist means you sort of have to get out of your head and not overthink things too much, or or to really sort of achieve something in a kind of logistical way, scientific way. You have to give up certain pleasures. Like in principle, this is kind of the idea. So my technique in this system is to, even though it's not possible, to really coherently take all four of these perspectives. I try to cover each topic from the perspective of each of these perspectives. From each of these perspectives, even though the total picture ends up feeling incomplete. This is a sort of honest way of working. So anyway, in the remainder of this 40-day period, I'll spend 10 days at a time with the focus on each one of these four and talk more about its inner workings. And then as we continue on with the system, we'll apply this perspective in a more like methodological way, where our conception of each future topic will sort of be from each of these. Yeah, so that's it.